Motherhood is under attack in our culture today. 30, 40, 50 years ago, you could easily define what it meant to be a woman or to be a mom. Today, in the halls of Congress, you ask someone, and what's a woman? What defines a woman? Or a mother? And the response is often, we don't know. It's become so convoluted, it's become so strange. Even though science tells us that it is all about chromosomes, it is all about biology. You're either biologically a woman or you're not. And I know that we're in a great debate in our society about, what motherhood is. Men think they can be mothers. That's not God's design, and it's not truly possible. And I'm not here to get in trouble or to have anybody necessarily agree or disagree with me, but I'm here to honor moms, and particularly the moms of the Scripture that are given as examples, those wives in the Scriptures. And I want to explain to you how women and moms bless us every day, and that's why in the book of Proverbs, chapter 31, there's a tribute to what it means to be a wife and be a mom. First of all, she's a woman who blesses her husband. Unfortunately, the family unit is barely intact in our society. Broken families are more common than intact families. But when you find a man and a woman in a family, statistics, all the scientific studies, having a two-parent household demonstrates that those children are by and large healthier because having both that male and female figure. And a woman who blesses her husband from Proverbs is a wonderful thing. A wife of noble character, the proverb writer pens, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. He doesn't have to worry about her. He doesn't have to parent her. He doesn't have to control her. He doesn't have to direct her because she's got her own direction from God. And he actually has this wonderful, proud confidence in who she is. And there are some amazing, outstanding mothers, particularly the godly mothers. Now, I want to apologize first off because not everybody in our broken society has had a good mother. Some of you have had very, very poor examples of mothers. Mothers who were struggling on their own. And until we fit the biblical picture, until we come back to God in our families and our societies, we're not going to have men and women of noble character. We're not going to have husbands who are also noble and have confidence in their wives. But when you find that, it's a rare thing. Far more than expensive rubies, than any kind of jewelry, than anything that we put value on. And she brings him good all the days of her life. She's also a woman who blesses her world besides her husband. Verse 13, she selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She's not lazy. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. So she gets up very early in the morning. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. I have to tell you, there would be a rare day that I would ever beat my wife. And wait, I can't stop there. That would be a rare day as well. that my wife would not arise earlier than I do. She's always up, 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning. And this is a woman here. She gets up, it's still dark outside because she's got work to do. She's got things to do. She provides food for her family. She prepares for the day and portions for her female servants. She's so capable that she can manage a household of female servants for them to do. Now, we don't have that. Now, I don't know, maybe some of you, are wealthy enough that you have servants in your home, but that's not the average thing in middle-class America. But this is a woman who benefits the world as well because she's productive. A woman who is confidently prepared for life. She knows who she is. She knows where she's going. Verse 21, when it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. Scarlet being, a symbol of not only warmth and security, but luxury as well. She takes care of her household. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Does that mean every mother needs to know how to sew? No. It's not what he's saying. He's saying every mother needs to know how to manage their life, given their talents, given their abilities, given their resources. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. There's a certain luxury about this mom. She is sophisticated, but she's not so sophisticated that she's haughty. She's not so sophisticated that there's an arrogance about her. She is a down-to-earth and yet very, very classy mom. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. That, in this context, is somewhat supplemental because the wife is that way. This gentleman, who's respected in the city gates, is probably a business person himself. This man is able to relax and go do other responsibilities because he has so much confidence in the integrity, in the productivity, in the ability of his wife. She's confident, and it allows him to be confident. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. Now, we don't live in that kind of culture anymore. Sometimes you make things and sell them, and that's a neat kind of thing. But she is clothed with strength and dignity. It's her character. She can laugh at the days to come. She smiles at the future, knowing that she's prepared. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. And who is she sharing that with? Her children, her family, her household. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. She is not a lazy person. Now, it's not wrong to watch soap operas or binge television or whatever you want to do. But if it consumes your life, if that's the sum and substance of what you do in your home, he's talking about just the opposite of this. Now, you don't need to be working all the time. You don't need to be productive all the time. You need space and time for leisure and for enjoying your family. But she does not eat the bread of idleness. She's always got something on her agenda. And she's a woman who leaves a legacy of godliness because she is godly. Her children arise and call her blessed. Now, that word blessed means happy, contented, and making the children contented. Her husband also, and he praises her. Make sure, guys, if you're married, praise your wife for the things that she does. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting. There is, if you've ever gone on the internet or Facebook or whatever, the one thing I can't stand, and I hope I don't offend anybody, the one thing I can't stand is these manufactured pictures. I would love to do a manufactured picture of myself, photoshopped or whatever, and and I look like Brad Pitt, or I look like Tom Cruise, or whatever. But that's not accurate. And so I see that some men and women are so connected to beauty that is fleeting that they have to make themselves look different on their Facebook pages because they're not happy with what God gave them. They're not happy with the aging process that we all go through. My wife, years and years ago, when we first met, there were a couple of stipulations about whether she would marry me, and the one thing is I had a great head of hair. And she liked that fact, and she said, I'm really not attracted to guys who are bald. Well, guess what? She didn't kick me out yet. And because of my situation, I lost all my hair. It's starting to come back in a little bit. But we both know that beauty is fleeting. Being handsome is fleeting. And charm, false charm is what it's talking about, is deceptive, where you're trying to accomplish your agenda at the expense of someone else. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised because she walks with the Lord. She's honest. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. So not only is her husband honored at the city gate, she's honored at the city gate. And in Jewish traditions, that was a rare thing to happen. I want to jump to Exodus chapter 20. It says there, honor your father and your mother. This is addressed to the children. So that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Does that assume that you're going to have a good father and mother? Are you to honor them, children, youth? Are you to honor them only if they are good? Only if they are noble? Now, you don't have to agree with them. Some have had evil parents. I wanted to do a sermon one time on Jezebel, the worst mother who ever lived. I haven't gotten around to doing that on a Mother's Day because I think it'd be too much of a downer for all of you. But she was evil. She was terrible. Honor your father and your mother so that you may live long. God puts a promise with this. Even if you had bad parents, you don't have to agree with them. But you have to honor them, and you honor them by looking at those parents, assessing the good and the bad, and then looking beyond them to the good God, the Father of everything good, and saying, God, you allowed me to be in this broken family. You allowed me to have all of this ugliness in my life. And we're going to get to a character who experienced that in a moment. And yet I can look beyond the poor parenting, and I can change the thing by my faith in you, Lord Jesus. And he says, when you do that, it adds years to your health and your life. Leviticus 19, the Lord said to Moses, speak to the entire assembly of Israel and say to them, be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy. And then he adds this, you're supposed to be holy, separated apart like God is, connected to the living God for the nation of Israel, for each individual. And then he says this, each of you must respect your mother and father. There's not a caveat in that. There's not a contract that says, okay, you only need to respect them if they're good. No matter what, if they're your mother or father, you don't have to agree with them. But there needs to be some sense that as I honor them, I honor God. And you must observe my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. Honoring our parents brings blessing to our lives. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1, again addressed to the children. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. He goes back to that passage in Exodus, and he says, which is the first commandment with a promise. Do you know what that means? Of the 10 commandments that are given there, that's the first one we run across. You know, thou shalt not lie, honor the Lord your God above all other gods. But this is the first one that there's a promise connected with. And Paul picks that up in Ephesians and says, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. Children and youth, if you rebel against your parents, no matter how bad or good they are, you're shortening your life. Now, I don't know how that works, but there's something that happens that God made a promise with it. And yet, you know, people who have had evil parents or even good parents, they've rebelled against their parents and they have lived a long, good life. But they're deceiving themselves. And he says, generally, in this promise, if you honor even a bad mom or dad, it will increase your life. It will make a difference in your life. Not always. There are circumstances that impinge on that, but generally, this is the principle that he's getting at. Honoring our parents brings blessing to our lives. Romans chapter 16. The Apostle Paul's ministry was dependent so much on women and mothers. There were, just like with Jesus, there were women who followed him, traveled with him, became his disciples. Who do you think did most of the work? I'm going to tell you, it wasn't the men. It wasn't the disciples, the male disciples. It was the female followers of Jesus Christ, because they're amazing. Just like women in our congregation. Most of us as men sit back and let the women do all kinds of work. Don't do that, guys. I mean, you want to be not only a spiritual leader, but you want to be involved. Romans 16. Greet Tryphena and Tryphosa. There's a couple of names. We've got some babies on the way. Those women who work hard in the Lord. Greet my dear friend Persis, another woman who has worked very hard in the Lord. Greet Rufus, chosen in the Lord, and his mother, who has been a mother to me too. This is Paul's adoptive mother. His ministry was greatly helped and probably would not have been near as successful without the help of women and mothers. One final thing we want to look at. In the Old Testament, Hannah. And I've had the question many, many times. Given the chaos of the world, given what a mess it is, why should I bring a family, bring children into this world? And I want to tell you, Hannah faced the same thing. She's a mother who knows safety with God. Verse 24, back in Samuel. After he was weaned, that is Samuel, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with a 3-year-old bull. So Samuel was probably between 2 and 3 years of age. If you remember the story of Hannah, she could not have children. She prayed and prayed and prayed, and Eli the priest thought she was drunk and she was just praying. God answered her prayer. And then, of all the things, if this is your only child that you prayed for, wouldn't you want to raise them for the rest of their life? Wouldn't you want to have them grow up and be independent? Do you know what she did? She gave him to a corrupt priesthood. But she had made that vow to God. If you give me a child, the child belongs to you. And God, I will look past the corrupt priesthood and trust you to raise that child. An ephah of flour and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When the bull had been sacrificed, they brought the boy to Eli. Eli was the corrupt priest, and his sons were corrupt. And she said to him, "Pardon me, my lord, as surely as you live, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord." This was a couple years ago. "I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord. I will give him up." Hardest thing for a mother to do. And he worshiped the Lord there. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 1. "Then Hannah prayed and said, My heart rejoices in the Lord my horn is lifted high. My mouth boasts over my enemies, for I delight in your deliverance. There is no one holy like the Lord." She is rejoicing in the Lord. "There is no one beside you. There is no rock like our God." One of the things that Hannah knew, and all godly mothers and godly parents know, is children do not belong to us. They're on loan. Like I've said before, sometimes you want to give them back. But they're a gift on loan from God. And so Hannah was able, in a corrupt situation, knowing that there might be a very poor example, an example of greed and corruption, where this little boy would grow up, that this little boy belonged to God, and he could be left and trusted in a bad situation. You and I might try to figure out how to do that otherwise, but this is the vow that Hannah made. Was it a rash vow? I don't think so. Was it something that was done foolishly? I don't think so. I think it was totally dedicated, and you go on, Samuel became one of the judges and made an impact, great impact in Israel's history. Secondly, God can and does use bad situations to cause good. Many of you have stories. And those stories are, I came out of a bad family. I came to Jesus Christ. My life is different now. Or if you came out of a good family. I came out of a really good family. But they weren't particularly religious. They found Christ later after I found Christ. And God worked it all for good. I was teasing with my own mother just recently about how children turn out. And this is not a well-known fact. It will be now because it'll be all over the internet. My parents didn't know what to do with me. I was really rebellious as a teenager before I met Christ. And they were looking around for reform schools. They thought, you know, maybe we'll send him to a military school. Maybe we'll do something with him because he is unmanageable. I had an older sister and a younger brother, and they were fine. I couldn't seem to behave very well. And then I met Jesus Christ, and it made all the difference. But that's what they were looking for. God can use and does use bad situations to cause good. And when you look at the tension of Hannah's home, what was going on with the corrupt setting of Samuel's upbringing among the priests, you wonder how this young boy turned out at all. And I want to tell you, moms, dads, families, we will always live in a world of pitfalls and dangerous possibilities. It hasn't changed, it's not going to change. And the greatest security in life is God's control and not ours. And what Hannah did was she turned her son over to God's control and said, God, this is not a great situation. It's a terrible situation. But I trust you, God. I look beyond the circumstances. If you have a bad marriage, if you have a broken marriage, if you have a situation that is not ideal, don't beat yourself up. Don't punish. Look beyond the corruption and the failure of that situation. Look beyond the things in our society that cannot raise a family. One of the greatest lies to ever come down is it takes a village. No, it doesn't. It takes God and a couple of parents. And sometimes it takes a single parent looking to God. Now, it's great to have support. And if there's any village that could help, it would be the church family. But the government village isn't going to help. The secular village isn't going to help. They're going to confuse and redefine everything in such a way that we don't know the difference between a mom and a dad, a man and a woman. And we're headed on a fast road that direction. The only security we have in that corrupt society is looking to God's control and not ours.